why? Why do people insist on bringing toddlers and little kids out if they're not going to watch them constantly? I can't imagine the level of negligence that would lead to your 2-year-old wandering off and falling down a damn ravine. Fun fact, when someone's skull is shattered, it rumbles when you move it. Sort of like broken pottery sliding around. So yeah. Sorry. I haven't been around much. Here's a few things I thought you guys might like. I've got a buddy of mine down in Deschutes County. He's a veteran PR. 2 years ago, he was spending the summer in a fire tower, and it was an unusually dry summer, so he was on high alert. His particular fire tower looked something like this. One night around 6 or so, he was out on the balcony, looking around the area through binoculars. But what he estimated was a mile away, he saw something moving in the brush. Someone was walking along a trail that skirted the base of the mountains. The man appeared to be in his late 50s with a full beard and heavy gut. He moved along at a slow but steady pace. Unfortunately for him, however, he was in a no-go area. My friend reached for his radio to call in and request another PR to intercept him. But it wasn't on his hip, where he usually kept it. So he lowered the binoculars to look around. He found it and attempted to relocate the man. He found the area that the man had been in, but he was gone. And my friend was puzzled, worried as well. Had he fallen? Was he hurt? He scanned all around, but there was absolutely no trace of the guy. He lowered his binoculars, but as he did so, there was a flash of red across his vision. He raised them, and the entire field was full of shifting red, and he could make literally no sense of what he was seeing. Of course, eventually he figured it out, and when he did, he looked up, and the man was no more than 100 yards away, still walking with that same slow pace. My friend went into what I guess would be a mild state of shock at the impossibility of the situation, because he remembers freezing and being forced to watch the man come closer to the base of the tower. There was something wrong with his eyes. They were looking down, but so far down that only the very tips of the irises were visible. That's how close he got to me before he stopped. Just below the balcony. He craned his neck up, but his eyes didn't move. And he opened his mouth, but he didn't say anything for a moment. Then his jaw moved up and down a bit, and he said, "I saw you." The man's irises started to roll up just as they were about to make eye contact with my friend and managed to break his paralysis and booked it into the cabin. He slammed the door and locked it, and the man was there so fast that my friend said that he couldn't even register it. He tapped on the glass, and my friend refused to look at him. He turned his back and he waited for the thing to go away. My friend believes that turning your back on a demon or an unholy thing will force it to leave. I guess in this case he was right, because the thing eventually left. My friend stays out of there for the rest of the summer. He made sure to keep the doors locked at night. Probably some kind of really weird refraction from a lake or a kind of mirage, but there has been a little cluster of sightings that I thought were interesting. They happened in the same place at the same time, but on different days. Universally, the reports basically describe the observer hiking up to a scenic viewing spot, seeing something up above the horizon, higher up than a mirage would normally be, almost at eye level. When viewing with plain sight, it was impossible to tell what it was, but it was obviously stationary. When viewed with magnification, it was possible to make out someone suspended in the air, upside down, hands at his sides. Someone's teenage kid compared it to those glitches where you see through walls and the NPCs are just standing around at weird places. Like I said, we're pretty sure it's a weird mirage from a lake. Possibly even some stupid prank. Well, we'll keep an eye on it. Do you ever have a memory you can't remember, but you remember remembering it? God, it's driving me crazy. So there was this big case down south a few months ago. uncle from a prominent local family went out hunting and didn't come back. The theory was that he'd fallen into a sinkhole, since they'd been popping up in that area with the unusually heavy rainfall. Even though the search was largely conducted with this in mind, it took a long time to find him. Didn't help that his legs were gone by that point. He was the victim of one of the absolute dumbest fucking accidents I'd ever seen. One of those things that'll happen once and never again. Poor guy tripped on an exposed root. Fell forward. And when he reached out to catch himself, he had the unfortunate luck of breaking through into a sinkhole. It wasn't particularly deep, but unbeknownst to him, it had a second entrance at the base of a tree 50 yards away. And unfortunately, the sinkhole was occupied, and he landed awkwardly on his wrists in a pile of diamondbacks. Now, the guy survived. He survived long enough to feel one puncture his eye and another bite through his lip. He didn't live any much longer than that. Stuck almost vertically, the venom basically mainlined to his brain, and he died. He died before he could figure out a way to escape. And that goes down as one of the most idiotic and senseless ways for someone to die that I had ever heard of. Good evening, kids. It's me, MrCreepyPasta, and I wanted to tell you thank you so much for watching tonight's video, or listening to tonight's podcast, or however you hear tonight's story. If you guys are listening on YouTube, then I really appreciate it. I appreciate the likes, the comments, and the subs. If you guys are listening on Spotify, I appreciate the follow or the sub. If you listen anywhere else you can find a podcast, then, I appreciate you doing that as well, because this is what I do. And of course, I want to give a very, very, very big shout out to all of my followers on Patreon, especially Bloodlace, Peter Bowie, AcidSystem, F, Alan Hyper, Brennan Matthews, Mary Massacre, Janine Hook, Paul Livingston, Seth Joseph Richards, Ashlyn, Deadeye Nick, Azad, Hosenbokus, Rick Dance, Bryce Charles, Luminen Walker, Sheri Morgan, Jake Mcnee, Victoria Helton, BDH9294, Melinda S, Phinney, Nathan, Dante Rowe, Jane Rennalls, acebandg, Ryan Kellum, Bobby J. CAVANAUGH, Barbara Biggs, BellaBailey, NinjaGrace, Dad Obsessed Trash, Suzanne Grow, Tommy Walters, Tater Chip, Onbu Op Willie, Sarah Gree, Yuri Catslash, Randy, Brad Gustafson, Sean Tristan Markham, B. Lisa Tyser, Jose Rodriguez, Adagio Rose, Peaceful Buddha, Azarine Fox, Freddy Krueger, Ho Gunkchi, Justin Johnson, King Hades F13, Michael Scarborough, James Lowe, Someone You Love, Nina Smith, Rafael Rodriguez, and Chance Burnett. You guys, as always, are the real MVP, and I can't thank you enough for helping me get to where I am now and, generally keeping me alive. So thank you all so much for supporting on Patreon. Thank you everybody in the description for supporting on Patreon. And thank you everybody out there who's listening and watching somewhere across the many reaches of the internet. Have a good night and sweet dreams.